Welcome to Weeping Washboards. Washboard weepers, well. The evolution of daytime drama from the days of radio to television and beyond.
Come and listen to a radio station where the mighty hosts of heaven sing.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on. If you want to hear the songs of Zion coming from the land of endless spring, get in touch with God. Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on and listen to the music in the air.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on, heaven's glory share.
Turn the lights down low.
Turn the lights down low and listen to the Master's radio.
Get in touch with
Get
God.
in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Get in touch with God.
Get in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
In the 1930s, 15-minute radio dramas began with commercials that primarily sold laundry detergents and cleaning solutions. So the media started calling them soap operas.
Other sobriquets were soapy sagas, sudsers, dishpan dramas, and drainboard dramas, each reflecting an aspect of the homemaker's ongoing everyday chores.
These serialized melodramas were aimed at housewives, allowing them to perform their domestic chores while getting their daily dose of drama, romance, and intrigue.
One of the defining features of a soap opera was a continuous open narrative, and each episode ended with a cliffhanger and a teaser of what might happen the next day.
The storylines were as squeaky clean as the products they advertised, with plots focusing predominantly on family values.
To quote James Thurber, a soap opera is a kind of sandwich whose recipe is simple enough, although it took years to compound.
Between thick slices of advertising, spread 12 minutes of dialogue. Add predicament, villainy, and female suffering in equal measure. Throw in a dash of nobility. Sprinkle with tears. Season with organ music. Cover with a rich announcer sauce. And serve 5 times a week.
On February 15th, 1932, Clara, Lou, and Em moved from weeknights to weekday mornings on NBC, making history as the first daytime serial on network radio.
There was no real story, just a lot of gossip among 3 women who lived in a small town duplex. They chatted about everything from their families to the high prices at the grocery store to politics.
Their sponsor, Super Suds, became known as the first soap product to sponsor the first network daytime program.
Good morning, radio listeners. Clara, Lou, and Em, brought to you by the makers of Super Suds, the only soap created especially for dishwashing. Soap that dissolves instantly and completely, protecting the smooth white loveliness of your hands.
Super Suds, extra suds for whiter duds. Suds with super do. Get Super Suds that's new.
Clara, Lou, and Em was a successful alternative to the cooking and household hints programs that dominated the daytime schedule.
The local Chicago radio station, WGN, hired Erna Phillips, the mother of daytime drama, to create a 15-minute domestic serial drama to air 6 times a week.
Painted Dreams was the story of an Irish-American widowed mother, Monaghan, and her unmarried daughter in a Chicago neighborhood.
The message of the drama was that marriage, love, and motherhood offered the greatest achievement in destiny any female could hope to experience.
One Man's Family was the longest running uninterrupted dramatic serial in the history of radio.
One Man's Family, brought to you by Fleshman's Yeast and dedicated to the mothers and fathers of the younger generation and their bewildering offspring.
The storyline centered on stockbroker Henry Barber, his wife Fanny, and their 5 children living in San Francisco.
During its 27-year run, the Barbers aged, married, went to war, watched children and grandchildren grow up, and pondered the decisions made by their bewildering offspring.
Inspired by John Galsworthy's novel, The Fourth Saga, Carlton Morris divided the show's stories into books, with each episode a chapter.
Bob and Ray's satire of it, One Fella's Family, was part of their daily 15-minute slot on CBS.
The 2 comedians portrayed the Butcher family and used the radio's classic signature chapter and verse introductions,
Which is taken from book VI, chapter XI, pages 2, 3, 5, 11, 243, and the top of page 244.
And now, the romance of Helen Trent, the real-life drama of Helen Trent, who, when life mocks her, breaks her hopes, dashes her against the rocks of despair, fights back bravely, successfully, to prove what so many women want to prove, that because a woman is over 35 or more, romance in life need not be over. That romance can begin at 35.
The storyline revolved around a 35-year-old dressmaker who works her way up to become the chief Hollywood costume designer. Her hopes for marriage were perpetually thwarted by the plotting of former suitors, jealous women, and on some occasions, the hand of fate.
An incident occurred during a 1948 broadcast, as documented in Tune In Tomorrow by Mary Jane Higby.
As Gil attempted to convince Helen of his love for her, Helen again demurred and hesitated. Suddenly, a voice came over the airwaves.
Ah, for Christ's sake, lay the dame and get it over with.
As they searched the studio for the culprit, the man proceeded with sexually graphic examples of what Gil should do with Helen.
In spite of the shock, there were few protests from listeners. It remained one of the most popular shows, running for 27 years.
Death through various melodramatic means was a staple of the show, and the series ended with Helen's demise just before her most beloved suitor Gil returned to her.
And now, Oxidol's own Ma Perkins.
America's mother of the air, kindly, trusting widow Ma Perkins had a big heart and a great love of humanity. She always offered her homespun philosophy to troubled souls in need of advice.
Ma owned and operated a lumber yard in the town of Rushville Center, where the plot lines pivoted around her interactions with the local townsfolk and the ongoing dilemmas of her 3 children.
The closing of a typical episode of the 1940s.
Well, Willie, that's what we'd like to know. Just what does Gary Curtis want to talk with Ma about it in the morning? And I don't think Ma herself knows. Not yet.
Mrs. Harris is another one of the many women in Rushville Center who use Oxidol for dishwashing as well as for laundry. Not long ago, she was telling me about it.
Yes, Charlie. I figured a soap that can wash clothes white without bleaching, a soap that's good at laundry, should be more than a match for dishwashing grease.
Right. Oxidol's hustle bubble suds are so lively, they actually dissolve dishpan grease. Not just cut it or loosen it, but really dissolve that grease. And suds that active stay plenty lively till the last dish and pan are sparkling bright again.
But Oxidol's not strong or harsh.
No, indeed. Why, just look at your hands. They're as smooth and pretty as any woman could want.
Why, thank you, Charlie.
But why don't every one of you listening try Oxidol yourself? See how it dissolves stubborn dishpan grease. Well, tomorrow at this time, we'll hear Gary Curtis say,
Ma, I've tried awfully hard to like you. I've tried to go along with you, and I've tried to believe in you. Now I'm going to tell you why I can't believe in you. I won't go along with you, and I think I'm beginning to hate you.
by all means, be sure to listen to Ma Perkins again tomorrow. Until tomorrow, then, this is Charlie Warren saying so long. And remember Oxidol, won't you?
Although Oxidol dropped its sponsorship in 1956, Ma Perkins continued until November 25th, 1960, when the remaining radio serials were canceled, the date known as the day radio drama died.
Big Sister, set in Glen Falls, dramatized the life of Ruth Evans, a modern-day heroine who sacrificed her own happiness to care for her orphan siblings.
Her sister married a newspaper man, and her crippled brother was cured by a miracle procedure performed by Ruth's love, Dr. John Wayne.
As an indication of the program's popularity, listeners sent truckloads of wedding presents to the CBS studio when Ruth and Dr. John Wayne were married.
Here's new Rinso.
New
Rinso's
richer, softer suds with extra clean action.
Give extra whiteness.
Extra brightness.
Extra satisfaction. Buy New Rinso.
Now, once again, we present Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble, a little Iowa girl who married one of America's most handsome actors, Larry Noble, matinee idol of 1,000,000 women, and the story of what it means to be the wife of a famous star.
On an average day, Mary dealt with assorted villains, homicides, blackmail, and vicious, jealousy-crazed rivals, while from the sidelines, she is forced to endure the never-ending pursuit of her husband by ambitious and lovesick starlets.
Backstage Wife ultimately made the rounds of all 4 networks. The sponsors included Procter & Gamble's Blue Cheer,
Blue Magic Cheer with the Blue Magic Whitener.
Ethel Barrymore starred in the Broadway play Argyle Sunday with the catchphrase, "That's all there isn't any more."
Once again, we present Our Gal Sunday, the story of an orphan girl named Sunday from a small mining town in the West, who found true happiness with one of England's most handsome lords, Lord Henry Brinthrope. Can this girl from the little mining town in the West find happiness as the wife of a wealthy and titled Englishman?
Most of our Gal Sunday's drama is from threats to marital faithfulness in the form of trampy vixens after Lord Henry, and men vying for the attention of Sunday.
D-U-Z, D-U-Z.
Put does in your washing machine. Take your does out bright and clean. When you does your wash, you'll sing.
D-U-Z does everything.
D-U-Z, D-U-Z. Put does in my washing machine. When I does my wash, I sing. D-U-Z does everything.
D-U-Z does everything. Yes, it's the Does program, the road of life. Everybody's doesing. It's the thing to do.
The kind of soap that does everything for you.
In the wash.
And in the dishpan, too.
Yes, all over the country these days you find Does doing double duty. It's kept busy in the wash tub and the dishpan, too.
Does really does everything. That's because it's a new kind of wash day soap with extra qualities that are tailor-made for dishes.
For fast work on greasy pans, for taking care of dishpan hands. It's Does all the way. You see, it's made richer, made finer than any granulated soap. And richer quality makes a big difference in your dishpan.
I want to put in a notice right here about hands.
Oh, give them a good word on hands.
Well, friends, Does is extra kind to your hands. In fact, with Does care, their looks will improve. You'll have lovelier hands.
Don't I always say there's never been a soap quite like Does before? It's a whiz for fast action on pans, for gentle action on hands. The one and only Does everything. And now Does invite you to listen to The Road of Life.
The story centered on handsome Dr. Jim Brent and his wife Jocelyn in the small town of Merrimack. As the heroine of a medical drama, Jocelyn suffered from almost every dread disease known to medicine.
A large factor in the story was the relationships between 3 generations of Brent's and Jocelyn's well-to-do but highly dysfunctional family, the Overtons.
Stella Dallas, a novel by Olive Higgins Prouty, became a successful movie starring Barbara Stanwyck before becoming a 15-minute soap opera.
We give you now Stella Dallas, a continuation on the air of the true-to-life story of mother love and sacrifice, in which Stella Dallas saw her own beloved daughter, Laurel, marry into wealth and society, and realizing the differences in their tastes and worlds, went out of Laurel's life.
This story found Stella, a seamstress and divorcee, lacking proper social graces, re-entering Laurel's life. She became the champion of many an underdog, tracking and subduing evildoers.
Against the Storm, written as if housewives were intelligent rather than the formulaic droll of common soap operas, was sponsored by Ivory Soap.
More doctors advise Ivory Soap than any other soap. It's 99 and 44, 100% pure. It floats.
It depicted the everyday lives of Professor Jason McKinley Allen, his wife, their daughters, and the family's many friends.
In 1941, it won the Peabody Award that recognized distinguished and meritorious service in radio, with the only criterion being excellence.
Front Page Farrell, with Richard Widmark playing reporter David Farrell, began as a typical married couple domestic situation.
In the 1950s, the program's focus shifted more to David's work as he investigated murders and tracked cold-blooded killers.
The crimes usually began on Monday and concluded on Friday. Typical examples of Front Page Farrell's cases.
The deep freezer murder case, in which a department store executive's body was found in a refrigeration unit.
The Fountain of Youth murder case, in which a farmer beauty queen was killed during a rejuvenation treatment.
The Blinding Light murder case, in which the owner of a modeling agency was murdered.
The interrupted wedding murder case, in which the father of the bride was murdered and a valuable wedding gift disappeared.
There is a destiny that makes us brothers. None goes his way alone. All that we send into the lives of others comes back into our own.
The guiding light centered on the Reverend John Rutledge and the people of the fictional Chicago suburb of 5 Points.
The lighted lamp in his study was a signal that he was available to help with the community's problems.
P&G White Laundry Soap, a bar soap used for washing laundry and dishes, was made during World War I and World War II.
Oh, you women folks of Newfoundland, attend to what I say, for I mean to make it easy for you on your washing day. And when you use your washing soap, I want you all to see, when you're taking off the wrapper that is stamped with P&G. Come along, attend to what I say, for I mean to make it easy for you on your washing day. Just look around on Monday and I'm sure that you will find that the women using P&G are the first ones on the line.
Oh, this soap, it is so popular, 'tis used in every bay. Some call it the white naphtha, and I'm sure it's come to stay. Now the merchants who do stock this soap, they say it's selling well, and the men who manufacture it are Procter and Gamble.
Come along, attend to what I say, for I mean to make it easy for you on your washing day. Just look around on Monday and I'm sure that you will find that the women using P&G have the first clothes on the line. Now this soap they call white naphtha, it does take out all the dirt, and it lathers up so easily that you don't have half the work.
So you don't have a substitute or any other take, for you can buy white naphtha for but 10 cents a cake.
Come along, attend to what I say, for I mean to make it easy for you on your washing day. Just look around on Monday and I'm sure that you will find that the women using P&G have the first clothes on the line.
When television brought an end to many of radio's soap operas, Erna Phillips adapted to the new format with These Are My Children that aired in 1949.
It was panned by critics and canceled after only 24 days because AT&T could no longer supply the cable required to transmit the show.
The first ongoing TV soap opera was The First 100 Years. It referred to the first 100 years of marriage as being rather more trying than the next 100.
It was replaced June 30th, 1952 with the TV version of Guiding Light, which aired for 57 years, 72 years total, counting its 15-year run on radio.
With the transition to TV, the guiding light became the town's lighthouse and was used as part of the storyline in some episodes.
Brent kidnapped Lucy and imprisoned her in the lighthouse. When Alan Michael rescues her, the three engage in a knockdown, drag-out fight on its platform.
The final episode took place at the base of the lighthouse as everyone gathered to say their farewells and live happily ever after.
It was the only soap to use a cloning storyline, complete with a serum to age the clone. The character died horribly and was never mentioned again by anyone.
Other shows that made the transition to television included Young Dr. Malone, The Road of Life, and The Brighter Day. By the 1960s, most soap operas were on television.
Soap Song by Carmen.
Gone are the days of Leave It to Beaver, Matt Dillon and his sidekick Festus.
Now we survive on immoral lives of those of the young and the restless.
It's not that they're young, they're just restless and being at all like they should.
So they go to General Hospital, and the doctors can't do them no good.
So they keep on with their search for tomorrow, not doing one thing that's right.
And they all end up in another world, about to fall off the edge of night.
But that shouldn't matter, because after all, as the world turns, you only have one life to live.
There remains a blessed hope for you and all your children.
More hope than Ryan could ever give.
If you want true contentment, peace in our homes, and an end to marital strife,
We must live for Jesus Christ, the only guiding light.
Not one, but all the days of our lives.
Search for Tomorrow premiered as a 15-minute live serial sponsored by Joy.
From grease to shine in half the time, joy in the bottle beats anything in a box.
Set in the Midwestern town of Henderson, it focused on the trials and tribulations of Joanne Gardner, Barron, Tate, Vincent, Turner.
In the grand finale, Jo was asked what she's searching for.
Tomorrow, and I can't wait.
As the world turns, opened with a black and white globe slowly spinning in space, then zooms in until the globe is in the center of the screen and the title slowly appeared.
As the world turns, we know the bleakness of winter, the promise of spring, the fullness of summer, and the harvest of autumn. The cycle of life is complete. And now, live for the next 30 minutes, As the World Turns.
It featured soap's first youth romance and created the series' first major stars, Rosemary Prince and Mark Rydell.
When Rydell chose to leave the series, his character was killed off. Viewers flooded the network with protests. TV Guide called it the automobile accident that shook the nation.
Typical dialogue between Dr. Susan Stewart and Barbara Ryan.
Oh, sorry. I was out yesterday because of the stupid wedding, and I had to stop by the hospital.
What wedding?
Oh, that's right. You weren't invited. Your son married my daughter.
What? That's impossible. Paul's still in jail.
They got married in the cell. It was everything a mother could hope for. Cement floors, iron bars, armed guards, and a son-in-law who's a murderer.
As the Stomach Turns. Featured on the Carol Burnett Show, parodied the soap opera. It portrayed the dilemmas of Marion, a 30-year-old who lived in Canoga Falls.
The sketches included missed cues. Marion would forget what she wanted to say, answered the doorbell either too soon or too late, and answered the phone before it rang.
One reoccurring character was Miriam's ne'er-do-well daughter, who arrived at the door holding a baby saying,
"Don't you recognize me, Mother? I'm your daughter."
After a brief encounter, she handed the baby to Marion and left. Marion would close the door, then turn and stash the baby in the umbrella stand.
The Edge of Night, conceived as a daytime version of Perry Mason, focused on crime, mystery, and courtroom action. The title came from its time slot, 4 p.m., the edge of evening or night.
The edge of night.
Mike Carr, its central protagonist, was a tireless crime fighter. He was introduced as a police officer finishing law school, progressed to assistant district attorney, was a defense attorney for a time, and then became district attorney of Monticello.
Its crime format dealt with an onslaught of gangsters, drug dealers, blackmailers, cultists, international spies, corrupt politicians, psychopaths, and murderous debutantes.
The Edge of Night played on more artistic levels than probably any other soap of its time. It is said that Betty Davis, Tallulah Bankhead, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Cole Porter were all devoted fans.
It was enjoyed by men due to the crime and mystery motif. At one time, its audience was estimated to be more than 50% male.
Clean as clean under the sun is tie clean, new tie clean.
Clean and bright as the sun on the sand, the kind of clean you like best next to those you love. That's because New Tide has extra cleaning power. With Tide, things always come out clean and fresh as a cool breeze. More than white, more than bright, really clean.
Clean.
The cleanest clean under the sun.
What a wonderful sight when your wash is done. The cleanest clean under the sun is Tide Clean, new Tide Clean.
Originally, the series focused on the medical staff of Port Charles General Hospital. It now focuses on dysfunctional family dynamics and family drama of the town.
The families included the quarreling and wealthy Quartermains, the mobster crime Corinthos, the middle-class Scorpios and Jones, the aristocratic Cassadine family, and the adventurous Spencers.
General Hospital rose to the top of the ratings with super couple Luke and Laura's 1981 wedding. 30 million viewers made it the highest rated hour in soap opera history.
In another episode, Luke, Laura, and a WSB agent found themselves on the Cassadine family's island, where they discovered that Mikos Cassadine planned to create a new Ice Age. Port Charles was going to be the first to freeze.
Enter the hero, Luke, who managed to turn off Miko's weather machine, and in the process, the head of the Cassadine family was killed.
After January 2012, General Hospital was the last soap opera airing on ABC. It celebrated its 50th anniversary, April 2013.
Since the show's debut in 1965, the title sequence of Days of Our Lives featured an hourglass with sand slowly trickling to the bottom against the backdrop of a partly cloudy sky.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. Days of Our Lives, a new dramatic serial starring MacDonald Carey.
The show revolved around the tragedies and triumphs of the suburban Horton family. Additional families interacted with them and served as springboards for more dramatic storylines.
Tony was mauled by a tiger. Alice was killed by a stalker with a poisoned donut. And John caught a bullet in his hand and shot it back with his fingers.
In another episode, a doctor interviewed a patient.
What is your name?
Scotty,
Who are you?
I don't know.
So you have amnesia,
Maybe. What's amnesia?
loss of memory.
I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure I do.
Is there anything that you can remember?
My name, Scotty.
What about your last name?
What? No. Where am I?
Dark Shadows was an American Gothic soap opera that depicted the lives, love, trials, and tribulations of the wealthy Collins family of Collinsport, Maine, where a number of supernatural occurrences take place.
It featured the vampire Barnabas Collins, as well as ghosts, werewolves, zombies, man-made monsters, witches, warlocks, time travel, and a parallel universe.
Watch one of the 3 films or reruns of the cult classic soap opera, and you might hear the following dialogue.
Turn off the gramophone. It's driving me mad.
Perhaps that's why I play it.
I know what Barnabas Collins is. We haven't got time to talk. We've got to escape. We've got to get out of this town.
I didn't say she was dead. I said I killed her.
Creator of the soap, Agnes Nixon wrote the poem, All My Children, that appeared in the title credits photo album.
The great and the least, the rich and the poor, the weak and the strong, in sickness and in health, in joy and sorrow, in tragedy and triumph, you are all my children.
Set on the East Coast, the risk-taking soap centers around Erica Kane and her long line of husbands.
All My Children was the first soap that discussed the Vietnam War in any depth. Phoebe and free-spirited Amy butted heads over the war, with Amy often leading protests around Pine Valley.
When Amy left, Ruth took over as the anti-war voice and protested against the war. Her 1972 protest speech won Mary Fickett the first Emmy Award given to a soap opera performer.
Erica Kane was the first TV character to obtain a legal abortion. In 2005, a writer rewrote the story, revealing that the doctor had transplanted the aborted embryo into his own wife, and they raised the child as their own.
The growing child came to Pine Valley, and it became known that he was Erica's son.
The offensive story alienated and offended loyal viewers in droves. In an attempt to correct the error, the writers killed Josh in 2009. But it was too little, too late.
The PBS children's show, The Electric Company, had their own soap opera. Each opening had a different set of opposites: a top star in a sideshow, a top dog in a pup tent, a busboy at a train station.
Love of chair. Can a boy from a small chair in a big room find happiness as a short stop in the long run? As our story begins, the boy is sitting in a chair.
The boy stands up. The boy picks up the chair. The boy puts down the chair. The boy sits down.
Will the boy stand up again? Will the chair break? Will you break the chair? And what about Naomi? For answer to these and other questions.
What time is it?
Is it a rerun?
How do you get to Carnegie Hall?
Where does it hurt?
Tune in tomorrow for Love of Chair.
In 1982, the first adult soap opera debuted on the premium cable network Showtime. Featuring a lot of the same plots as the network soaps, but with lots and lots of full frontal nudity. It lasted just 13 episodes.
In the movie Tootsie, an unemployed actor disguises himself as a woman in order to get a role on a Tracy Hospital soap opera.
What do you do when you cross a hopelessly straight, starving actor with a dynamite red sequin dress?
You get America's hottest new actress.
She's Dustin Hoffman, and he's Tootsie.
Excerpt from Tootsie's Revelation.
Thank you, Gordon. Well, I cannot tell you all how deeply moved I am. I never in my wildest dreams imagined that I would be the object of so much genuine affection. It makes me all the more difficult for me to say what I'm now going to say. Now, you all know that my father was a brilliant man. He built this hospital. What you don't know is that to his family, he was an unmerciful tyrant. He drove my mother, his wife, to drink. The son, Edward, became a recluse, and the oldest daughter became pregnant when she was 15 years old and was driven out of the house, moving to Tangiers, which is where she raised the little girl as her sister. But her one ambition in life was to become a nurse. And so she returned to the States and joined the staff right here at Southwest Central. Your doctors found her idealistic and reckless, but she was deeply loved by her brother. Yes, by her brother. And it was this brother who on the day of her death swore to the good Lord above that he would follow in her footsteps and just owe it all up to her, but on her terms as a woman. And just as proud to be a woman as she ever was. For I am not Emily Kimberlin, the daughter of Dwayne and Alma Kimberly. No, I'm not. I'm Edward Kimberly, the recluse brother of my sister Anthea. Edward Kimberly, who has fully vindicated his sister's good name. I am Edward Kimberly, and I'm not mentally ill, but proud and lucky and strong enough to be the woman that was the best part of my manhood, the best part of myself.
The film Soap Dish tells the backstage story of the cast and crew of a popular fictional television soap opera, The Sun Also Sets.
An ambitious soap actress, Montana Moorhead, wants to be queen of the soaps. She hires Celeste's old boyfriend to be on the show, and then has her written into the script as a murderer. Each attempt has unforeseen circumstances.
All that glitter, all that glamour, all that dirt.
Celeste and Dr. Randall are reading unrehearsed lines from the teleprompter.
Dr. Randall, what a surprise! Are you having lunch here?
I will if it's that simple. I wish it was that simple.
This guy never heard of contact lenses?
The results have come back.
And?
I'm afraid the results are very disturbing. It seems that Angelique has a rare case of brake fluid. Bran fluid. Bran flavor?
Brain fever.
Brain fever?
Yes, brain fever. Or we call in Austria Kopfschlagen. Kopfschlagen. At the current rate of inflation, her brain will laterally explore the...
Literally explode?
Yes, exactly, within the next 3 houses.
Hours!
Yes, it will literally explode within the next 3 hours. I would suggest leaving the restaurant. Restaurant, yes.
Her brain will actually explode?
Yes, I've seen it happen. It's a dreadful, dreadful thing.
Can young Ashley find success and happiness in the big city?
Will the dashing Eric win her heart?
Can she make customers buy more Tide detergent?
Stay tuned or logged on.
Procter & Gamble brought soap operas to radio, then television. Now it's online with Crescent Heights, a new show viewers can watch on their PCs and cell phones.
The series focuses on Ashley, a public relations administrator, her friends, and romantic interests living in Los Angeles.
While your washer is filling up and you're waiting to add that soapy ingredient, stop over to the Crescent Heights website and watch all 10 episodes.
Crescent Heights will not air on any TV station, but will be available mobile and online through Tide's website.
A soapy love story. There was a beautiful girl named Joy and a suave boy named Dove. They met at the beach while riding the surf. It was love in the sunlight. Joy was very excited to make Dove her life boy, and Dove, like all boys does, wanted to whisk Joy away to the minister and a deluxe hotel. Aunt Fab convinced the sweethearts to hold off on their caresses and have a wedding at fair and lovely gardens. Joy wore an ivory gown and carried a cashmere bouquet. The newlywed, all their friends and relatives cheered after they took their vows. The newlyweds watched the tide come in under starry skies on their fairyland honeymoon among the palm olive trees. They lived happily ever after in paradise, and a year later had twins, Johnson and Johnson. Thank you for coming. Please join us for refreshments.
Come and listen to a radio station where the mighty hosts of heaven sing.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on. If you want to hear the songs of Zion coming from the land of endless spring, get in touch with God. Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on and listen to the music in the air.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on, heaven's glory share.
Turn the lights down low.
Turn the lights down low and listen to the Master's radio.
Get in touch with
Get
God.
in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Get in touch with
Get
God.
in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio